Welcome to About the Winelands. In this show, we'll be chatting to leaders, influencers, wine producers, restaurants, winelands businesses, and other role players. Tune in every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday for our latest episodes. You will find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram TV, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. Good day, everyone, and welcome back to About the Winelands. Today I'm speaking to Deidre Taylor. Deidre is the Sales and Marketing Manager at Kanonkop Wine Estate. Good morning, Deidre, and welcome to About the Winelands.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
It is our pleasure. So, Deidre, I'd like to know, and I think our listeners will be interested to know, is tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became involved in the wine industry.
I suppose, like all good things in life, the wine industry happened to me by accident. I grew up in Cape Town and I moved to Stellenbosch to come to university, and I was studying, I enrolled to study industrial psychology. And I realized during the course that industrial psychology was not really for me, but I completed my degree and of course got exposed to lots of wine along the way. So a very happy accident. I started working in the cellar door at Morganhof years ago, and that's where my journey started, and fell in love with wine. And I think I've been selling wine since 2002, so quite some time.
That is quite some time. How long have you been at Kanonkop?
I'll be here. I started in September 2013, so just under 7 years.
Okay, that's quite a while as well. So, you know, Kanonkop has a rich history also, and also this with some famous winemakers. Can you tell us a bit more about Kanonkop, its history and its winemakers?
I think one of the most fantastic things about Kanonkop, so everybody involved here, really, you feel like you're part of one big family. And we're just under, I think we're around 65 people that work on the property. And for a winery that's been making wine since the 40s, and our brand started in 1973, that was the first vintage that labeled that the name Kanonkop appeared on a wine label. And we've only had 3 winemakers since then. So Jan Boland was our first winemaker. Obviously, at the time, he was also a Springbok rugby player. So whether he made wine during the day and played rugby at night or vice versa, you know, that's what he did. And he's a very colourful and very interesting personality to chat to, and hugely knowledgeable. And you can still ask him now, so what was the vintage like in 75? And he'll be able to tell you, oh, it was this or that, and so much rainfall, it was a dry year, or this was a challenge. And he remembers each and every one. It's incredible. So we have a really long history of very, I'd say, big characters, big personalities, and also hugely talented winemakers that have worked on the property. But we've actually only, as I said, had 3. So Jan Boland was our first. And then obviously he left to take over the reins at Frisenhof, and where he carried on making wine there. And then Beyers joined us in 1980. And obviously in the 80s, tough time for wine industry in South Africa, and you know, obviously everyone still under apartheid, but it was under the curatorship or under the winemaking or the cellar master of Beyers that Kanonkop really started to become well known. And Beyers was also responsible for making the first vintage of Paul Sauer. So Paul Sauer started in 81, which is our flagship Bordeaux blend, and he was the winemaker to make the very first one. And Beyers, you know, we still see him around on the property quite often. Him and Aubrey are really good friends, and you know, we do joint tastings with them. And often when I travel overseas, you know, we'll do pinotage masterclasses or pinotage events, and Kanonkop and Beyers Cliff would be involved. So he's very much sort of a presence on the property, and we see him often. And also a very personable guy. He's incredibly good storyteller, and he's very engaging, and people can relate to him. So on top of being a great winemaker, he also has a great personality that people love to chat to and enjoy. And Beyers was our winemaker up until 2003. And then Aubrey joined. Aubrey, who's our current winemaker, was actually making wine at Swartland Co-op. And Beyers met him, and he brought Aubrey on as his assistant in 2002. And then Beyers fell ill over harvest. So Aubrey ended up doing the 2003 vintage on his own. And then Bears later left, and he went over to Bearscliff. And Bearscliff at the time was a winery and a cellar that the owners of Kanonkop and Bears owned together. And then later the Crickers sold off their portion. But so Bears, effectively, he went over to his own winery, which he still has today. And then Aubrey took over as winemaker from 2003, and is our winemaker still today. So for a winery that's been making wines for all these years, only to have 3 winemakers is really significant from a legacy point of view, from a consistency of style point of view, but also from a great understanding of what the property and what the vineyards have to offer. You know, a vineyard, it takes a long time for you to understand what one particular vineyard is going to give you. You know, what a dry looks like versus a wet season, what cover crops work well, and then, you know, which vineyards do you combine best, what barrels to use, what barrels you combine best. So I think Aubrey has an incredible knowledge of the property, and that would be difficult to pass on. And it takes personal experience and working with all of those elements for many years to have a true understanding. And that's part of what makes Kanonkop so successful. And the other thing is that each of those winemakers have made a Kanonkop style of wine. They haven't made their own style, if I could put it that way. So if you taste through 40 years of Kanonkop wines, and you didn't know where one winemaker finished and another started, you'd be hard pressed to find, you know, where one winemaker started and the other one finished, because there's such an incredible consistency and Kanonkopness, consistency of style through all of those wines. So the Kanonkop is a family-owned winery. Johan and Paul Kricher that own the property, 2 brothers, and they inherited the farm from their mom, who was a Sauer, and her father was Paul Sauer, and his father was J.W. Sauer. So it's a 4th generation family property that passed from the Sauer to Kricher family through marriage, and we've always kept things quite simple. And simple, I don't mean in a lack of complexity way. I just mean that we're really focused, and Johan always stipulates, you know, that his ethos, you know, he talks about being back to the future. So he does what he does well. We do what we do well. We don't try and reinvent the wheel. We don't have restaurants, hotels, you know, big events, big functions. That's not what we're about. We're a winemaking property. We have a great cellar. We focus on red wines, and even more so, we focus on 2 great varieties, Pinotage and Cabernet. So we like to keep things quite simple and uncomplicated, and focus on what we do well. And I think that's had a very big impact on the business and on the cellar and how we do things. And I think it also puts us a little bit aside from some of the wineries that do a whole host of things. I mean, you can find wineries that do everything from sparkling to port, sweet and dry, white and red, and that becomes difficult, and it becomes complicated when trying to bring across a brand message and trying to build a portfolio. So I've always enjoyed Johan's approach in that, is that we do what we do, and we do it well and to the best of our ability. And if we do something that we can't do best, we just stop doing it, basically. So in the 80s, we were a complete fruit salad. We grew Sauvignon and Chenin and Pinot Noir, it was decided that we were never going to make the best Sauvignon. We were never going to make the best Pinot Noir. So why try? Stop, focus on what we do well, and build success on it. And I think that gives you some idea of the background and where we've come from. And if you look at our portfolio, we make the most wines now we've ever made. So we have a rosé, which is the only non-red, which is made 100% from Pinotage in the Cadet range. Then we have the Cape blend, which was the original Cadet. It came out as Cadet Dry Red or Druroy, and it was effectively everything not good enough to be part of the top estate wines. And the first vintage we made of the Cape blend was 1985. Then we released the Cadet Pinotage in 2013. And now, last year, we released a Cadet Cabernet Sauvignon for the first time, which is currently exclusive to Woolworths and to our cellar door. And then in the estate wines, we have the estate Pinotage and Cabernet, which were the first two wines we made. Both started in 73. The Paul Sour, as I mentioned, in 81. And then the black label Pinotage, which is a single vineyard Pinotage, which we released for the first time in 2006.
Wow, that's awesome. What's very interesting is how congruent the wines have been over the years, and which brings me. You touched on it a little bit, but I would like you to say a little bit more about, why do you think this has been so congruent? It has to be in the winemaking philosophy somehow. So how would you actually summarize your winemaking philosophy at Kanonkop?
You know what Aubrey always says, and if you chat to Aubrey and Johan, is when Aubrey started here, he was told that if you come to Kanonkop, you make Kanonkop wine. You need to make the wines in the style and that this property brings about. So he followed on from where Bears left off. The vineyards we farm, obviously we look for improvements, but we make wines to age. We make wines in open fermenters. We use the same coopers for our barrels that we've been using since the 70s. I'm not saying we don't try and improve. Of course, Aubrey is consistently looking at how to make things better, how to improve quality. But stylistically, it's the same. We're not trying to reinvent who we are. We know who we are. We're very secure in who we are. And we try to improve and tweak, but not to reinvent ourselves. And that's largely part of it. It's that strong philosophy of the who and what the property is.
Oh, amazing! So, I mean, you mentioned that your main focus is on the wine, and I mean that's what Kanonkop is famous for. But you do have guests coming to the farm. So, what can people experience when they come to Kanonkop?
So, if you visit us, which at the moment we allow visitors to the cellar door, but unfortunately there's no tastings offered at the moment. Usually, if you come to the cellar door, you can taste all of the wines for a normal fee. So we don't exclude Paul Sour or Black Label from tasting. They are available for tasting. There's an extra price to pay or extra fee to pay for the Black Label, but you can really taste some absolutely world-class wines. And then besides for wine tasting, we have an art gallery, and our art gallery is focused around local artists. Most of them come from the Western Cape, and we've done some really fantastic exhibitions in the gallery. And then if you're wanting, from time to time, we host some groups, or we have people that ask us for events. We have a small venue outside that we use for snook braais. And even those snook braais, they're done in the same way as we run everything else in the business. They're done personally. They're done by the family. So if you book a snook braai at Kanonkop, it'll be Paul and Ilse or Johan and Marie that'll be cooking the food, preparing it for you. Ilse will make the soup patat and bake a bread in her kitchen, or Marie will. And you get to experience your evening with them and with wine, which I think is hugely unique. It's not a restaurant, there's no staff, it's just you and them, and a very sort of personalized experience on the farm.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. So, Deidre, in terms of your distribution of your wines, I mean, Kanonkop wines are available everywhere in South Africa and also overseas. Is your market breakdown in terms of South African and overseas? Where's your focus?
We always try to look at the world as a whole. So, of course, South Africa remains our most important market, and we always will put favor towards South Africa. Even in vintages where supply is small, or the vintage was small, South Africa will get always get a good portion of it. And we're currently selling about 60% of our production is in South Africa and 40% is export. And that export we export to just around 60 markets. So we are quite widely available, but we have a huge support base, a huge fan base at home in South Africa, which is amazing. And I think that's where you want to be. If people locally and your neighbors love the wine, and Stellenbosch people come and buy wine from us all the time, we have a good support in our town. I think that's important. So when visitors from overseas come to South Africa, or come to Stellenbosch, and they meet friends or family, or come to visit with people bring them to Kanonkop. They take them to restaurants and share Kanonkop wines. So once again, that sort of personal connection that people have with the brand, they share on to others. So although we We make a fair amount of wine, especially on the cadet side. The estate wines remain quite limited in production. And we try and be as fair as possible when it comes to sharing out those wines. So most of the wines are on allocation. So for companies that we've worked with for a long time, some of our import partners we've been working with for 20, 25 years. And they have a consistent supply, and it's important. You build a partnership with your importers. We have good relationships with them, and we're a part of their business and they're a part of ours. We won't be successful without them, and vice versa. And I think that's we have that understanding and that support. It's incredible.
Oh, that's interesting. So, in terms of you know, a place like Kanonkop staying relevant in a changing market, there's all kinds of new trends evolving. You know, people are starting to eat less meat and there's a whole bunch of vegans out there in the world. Do Kanonkop follow any trends, or are you looking at millennials as a new market, or do you just carry on with increasing the quality of your wines and that is reflected in your marketing?
On the first point, quality wines made well and of high quality appeal to a large audience of people. So that is first and foremost Arbery's focus. You always focus on making putting the best possible wine you can in the bottle. And of course, we always try and put it in the bottle at the best possible price. You know, we strive to always over-deliver on quality for the price point. Secondly, consistency. So if your father bought a bottle of Cadet in 1992 and you buy a bottle of Cadet today, it will still remind you of the same quality red wine that your father remembers, or that he shared with you around a Sunday lunch table. And that consistency is important in times like we have now, where people when money is short, people are less experimental. They buy what they know. Big brands tend to do better. International brands seem to do better. You know, if you think of, I read a great article written by one of the top guys from Conchiatoro, and that was amazing to see that if your brand is known and trusted, you pull through difficult times so much easier and so much better than new brands or brands that are not known, because people have less money to spend, and they'll rather spend 100 Rand on a bankable bottle of wine that they know than spend 100 Rand on something they're not sure of and they're not sure they're going to enjoy. So that's I think has been one of the most important factors for Kanonkop during the lockdown and during COVID. Kanonkop has people that have been drinking our wine and buying wine from directly, for 20 or 30 years, and they've continued, which is amazing. So in terms of changing and what we've done, Kanonkop our wines are all vegan friendly, and I think that's important, and we do communicate that. So no matter whether you vegetarian or vegan, you can enjoy our wines quite confidently. Making sure we put the best possible products in the bottle and put that product on the shelf at the best possible price. Making sure our wines are available and easy to access. Funnily enough, we didn't know at the time, but we recently redid our website and simplified our wine shop, our online wine shop, and that went live just a couple of weeks before lockdown, which helped us immensely. So we work with a lot of great number of retailers around the world. So you can find our wines in Carrefour in Belgium and in Coop in Switzerland. So it's made it easy for people to have access to the wines, and that, as I said, was very, very beneficial. And if you look at how people are shopping and how people are buying, and the change in consumer behavior, less and less people will go out to restaurants for the next while. More people are obviously buying at retail. They tend to want to buy at smaller stores closer to home, and of course, online has seen massive growth. And we were lucky enough to be available in all of those channels. We work with all the major retail groups in South Africa. We work with them online, so it's been really easy and simple for people to be able to access a bottle of Kanonkop. And of course, if you make it easy for a customer to get their hands on your product, then they will buy it.
This is true. I think you're mentioning the coronavirus, and we all had to rethink our business models, and you've touched on it a little bit, but are there any other changes or new things that you have in mind that you might have considered over this period?
Kanonkop is always operated, we're a fairly small team. So we it's easier to make changes when you need to. There's no big corporate structure. There's no, not a lot of, we're a very flat structure. We have sort of two or three levels. So it's easy for us to sit around or to put in be on a team, a Microsoft Teams call or a Zoom call between us and make decisions and make changes of what we need to adjust to what people are asking for. We have seen that more and more people want to, as I say, buy locally, support the farmer, which has been amazing. We're seeing many more people buy directly from the winery, which has been great. So the changes we've had to make is, for myself, even that I usually work with the trade. I have very little to do with private customers. A colleague of mine, Heidi Kritzinger, she manages a private client business. So our private clients and our cellar door have been inundated with orders and requests. And so we've had to, reshuffle our work days a little bit and reshuffle the man hours. So for those of us that are involved in the trade side of the business, put in a couple of extra hours to help us set it all. And because we're a small team and we can react and make changes quite quickly, it was easy to do. There was no big, meetings or things that needed to take place. It's guys, the cellar door team needs help, needs support, and we all jump in and get it done. And I think that's also one of the, it's been hugely beneficial to understand one another's needs. But other than that, our business was already designed in the case that we were not terribly. We had good on-trade exposure and a lot of restaurants that bought our wine, but we were most of the volume of our sales were in the retail sector anyway. And those are that's the sector, retail and online, that's growing. Obviously, online has done incredibly well, but we were with in that channel, selling to those customers already. So it's a case of tweaks and making sure that you're available if somebody has a need, responding, listening to what your customers are asking you to do or asking you for, and trying to help where you can, and just stay in touch and stay relevant.
Oh, really, really good. I think you mentioned a few things. One of the things was the importance of the local market, and somebody mentioned once to me that South Africa has one big secret, and that most South Africans know as many people outside of the country as inside the country. And I mean, I think this is especially true of your area there of Stellenbosch and surroundings. Do you find that word of mouth, I suppose, is still your biggest way to actually get your awareness and your message out about Kanonkop? And a second part of that question is, do you actually embrace new things like social media and stuff, which is almost like a technology word of mouth? Is that part of your strategy?
Very much so, and you've hit the nail on the head completely. So as I was saying, we have people that have been buying our wines for years, and they're proud to buy Kanonkop and they're proud to serve Kanonkop. And they introduce so many people to the brand, whether they have friends or family from overseas coming to visit, they happily share Kanonkop with them, or whether they travel. And social media has been a very big part of our communication. We have a good database of people that we chat to, regularly. And when it comes to Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, we work with all of those, and we try and build as much direct conversations as we can. And a number of the partners we work with, the importers we work with, have a similar philosophy. So yeah, I mean, I've spoken to, I've met upper South Africans, whether it be in London or New York, who are saying that they love Kanonkop and they've come to tastings that we've done, and when they have lunch or dinner with friends and family, or invite them around for a braai or a barbecue, they're happy to share Kanonkop because they're proud of it. They're proud of this wine from South Africa, and they want to show they brag, or they brag a little bit about what products come from South Africa. And I think that's amazing, because if you've been introduced to something around a table with your friends or around a braai with some mates, you're more likely to take notice of it and to appreciate it. That works so much more effectively, and you're likely to internalize it and to take it on board than if you standing in a store and a promoter tries to come and tell you and sell you something. It's not nearly as effective. So if it wasn't for people that loved the brand and supported us, we wouldn't be here today. So I think that's been one of the biggest successes for us is that personal connection with people who love and share our wines.
Deidre, you've had an exciting wine journey. So what is the most important thing that you've learned from your wine journey so far?
Number one, I love wine. So I'm first and foremost a wine person. You know, I always joke that if the wine industry had to end today, what would I do? I have no idea. Maybe I'll go sell beer. But I love wine. I love to drink wine. And I think if you love what you do and you love your products, and what makes the wine industry so much better is even in your downtimes, even in times when things are tough, at least you've got a product that you can enjoy. I mean, how do you wake up and be excited in the morning if you sell toothpaste, toilet paper? It gets you out of bed. And it's very seldom that you work with people that are not nice or that you don't like. And it's very seldom that you travel to places that are not nice and you don't like. So it's you're usually fortunate in the industry. It is a lot of work though. And there is a bit of a myth that, you know, the wine industry is so glamorous and it's easy. It's really not. There's a lot of a hell of a lot of competition. It's probably one of the most competitive sectors in the world. And if you work for a winery in South Africa, I mean, South Africa is only 4% of the world's production. It's small, and not that many people know about you. And it's a lot of sharing of stories and sharing of products and engaging with people that you need to do to win them over. But it's usually pleasurable, very enjoyable, and I've loved it. I hope I get to stay in the wine industry for the rest of my career. It's my plan, for as long as they'll have me.
Well, it's great that you love what you do. So can you give us your very own wine quote, or a wine quote that that you like?
I suppose there's two things that I often say. You know, a really great bottle of wine, I describe it as, this is a wine I can sit in the corner and drink. You know, the wine is so superb that you don't need conversation with it, because conversation will just interrupt your thought process and processing and enjoying what you have in the glass. So sometimes you get that really, really special bottle and you think, I just want this for me, I don't want to share it. But I think from the business perspective, and I really have always enjoyed I enjoy the commercial side of the business. I enjoy the business as much as I do wine.
Deidre, that's been so interesting. How do, if people want to get hold of Kanonkop, how do they get hold of you guys?
In terms of reaching out to chat to us or reaching out for some wine?
Both. Hopefully to buy wine and chat.
Well, of course, Monday to Thursday from 9 until 5, they're welcome to pop into the cellar door. We open, and you can find us then. We're happy to have a chat on some wine, and then also you're able to buy them here. And then our website, kanonkop.co.za, you can read a lot of information about the history, about the winemakers. On the website, we also have vintage reports for each vintage, showing rainfall and temperature trends. There's some a short video you can watch on watching the winemaking process, and you can order wine on our online shop. And then, of course, we're available, as I said, in all the major retailers in South Africa, and you can find us. You can find us quite often in all of your good wine stores.
Okay, that's awesome, Deidre. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and very interesting. Thank you very much. I know you're busy, for spending the time doing this, and I think everybody will appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Will, and for everybody else, thanks for listening, and thank you for continuing to support Kanonkop as your wine of choice.
Thank you for supporting our show. If you would like to get more exposure for your business, please have a look at our sponsorship options. Thanks again for supporting About the Winelands. Please follow us on YouTube and on our social media channels. All details and links are in the description.